Just about a month ago now, I took a massive gamble on buying a crash damaged 2019 Aston Martin Vantage. I bought it as a non-runner, but actually on the day of collecting it, we actually managed to get it started. But not for long though, because it had a massive coolant leak and it couldn't drive out of its own accord because it had some suspension damage as well. We managed to push and use trolleys to get the Aston inside the unit and onto this ramp where it's stayed for the past month where we've been repairing it, as you guys would know. We fixed in a tie rods, we put front ends on it, we put headlights on it, and in the last video we managed to fit a full new dashboard and airbags. The thing is though, since doing all this work, we still have no idea whether it's going to start up or not. The last time we started it, we jumped the pyro fuse connection, and it's not the safest option. We've since changed the dashboard and then also replaced the pyro fuse with a Volvo pyro fuse because it was a lot cheaper and seemed exactly the same. And we can't just go ahead and try and start it now because there is absolutely no coolant in there because we've had all the radiators off the front, and there is 2 coolant reservoirs. We've got this one here, and then underneath this Aston Martin plastic section here is another coolant reservoir. This coolant reservoir is for the charge coolers and to cool the turbos, and I believe it runs all the way through the back to actually run coolant on the gearbox as well. So we've got to make sure both of these are filled before we can start it. But Aston Martin being Aston Martin, well, actually the engine is an AMG engine, but either way, you can't just top it up. It's got to be vacuum filled, and well, let's just crack on with it. So to vacuum fill the coolant system, this is what you're gonna need. This is, well, best way to put it, a vacuum filler. So we're gonna head over to the expansion tank, undo the cap, and then instead of the cap, replace it with the vacuum filler. It has a pressure gauge on the top and a bung on the bottom to make a nice seal with the expansion tank. And it sections off to the right hand side where you attach your T-piece to, and then that connects to your air line. This blows air across the vacuum filler, and when you open that tap, it should create a vacuum in the coolant system, but mine didn't seem to be getting any vacuum. Now there's an overflow pipe for the coolant that you can see here, which runs down to another overflow bottle, and then a pipe off that leads to the floor just to drain off any excess coolant. So I thought that this might be the reason I'm not getting any vacuum. So I undid that overflow pipe and then bunged it with a bolt and a bit of tape with hope to make some vacuum. But after turning on the air compressor, I still had no vacuum in the coolant system. Okay, so we've got 2 issues already. I can't get any vacuum through the cooling system. No vacuum at all, which can either only mean a couple of things. Either there is a huge leak somewhere in the system, or I'm just not doing it right. So what I'm going to do, instead of popping coolant in it first, I'm just going to run some water in there and just see if there's somewhere obvious that it's coming out. I don't have a smoke tester to smoke test it, but I'm just going to run some water through and we'll see what happens. Yep, that's why it's not vacuum filling, because it's coming out. So it's evident that there's a leak. I've just got to find out where it was coming from. I couldn't see much from underneath, so I started taking apart the top end of the car. Aha! I found it. I found the issue. There we go. We are in. So it's just a radiator hose which wasn't connected out of the many radiators on the front of this car. And now, with any luck, we should get some vacuum. And you can see here on my gauge, we're starting to create a nice bit of vacuum. And you know this because you can kind of feel it in the coolant pipes. It's sort of suctioned in. After a while, I could see that the cooling system was holding vacuum. So now it's time to add the coolant. So I've got to attach the coolant hose to the vacuum system, and then it simply just sucks the coolant into the cooling system. And then later realized I seem to have a faulty pressure gauge because it seems to be saying at the same pressure no matter how much coolant I sucked into the system. Now as for the other expansion tank, well, it's not good news. My vacuum filler didn't seem to fit in the top of it, so I was going to take a chance here and just fill it up with coolant with hopes that it would self-bleed. Okay, we are looking good. We should be all watertight now, fingers crossed. Both of the reservoirs are filled up. It's time for the moment that I've been waiting for since even ripping out the dashboard, and that is starting it up. Now, all of this excitement worked up my appetite. But instead of nipping to the shop to graze on rubbish food, I decided to grab myself a Y Food, who have sponsored today's video. Inside one of these bottles, there is 26 vitamins and minerals. It's high in protein, high in fiber, it's lactose-free, it's gluten-free, and there's no added sugar. There is loads of different flavors to choose from, and this bottle is 100% recyclable, and there's vegan options as well. Now, Y Food isn't a protein shake or a diet drink, it's simply a meal replacement drink, which makes it perfect for people who are constantly on the go like myself. So to try Y Food for yourself and grab a taster pack, you can do by clicking the link in the description box below, and with this banner appearing underneath me right now, you're going to save yourself a nice bit of cash as well, so use that discount code. Thanks Y Food, let's get the Aston Martin started. Now, before we go ahead and start the Aston, I just wanted to run the AUTEL through it just to make sure we've got no dramatic fault codes. Remember, we have to read this as a C63S because it won't read as an Aston Martin. But we've learnt they're pretty much the same thing. And as suspected, we do have a few fault codes. But the one I'm most worried about is the restraint system. The last thing I want is a fault code for that passenger side airbag, which is underneath the dashboard and not accessible, which we spent hours putting in. Okay, I had a little bit of a heart sink moment then. I was thinking we may get a fault for the passenger side airbag, which we can't actually access without taking the full dashboard out. But we still have fault codes for the restraint system, but luckily they're the fault codes that we could fix. So all of these fault codes, if I'm right, are for the seat belt. So you can see here the squib for the emergency tensioning retractor for the belt end fitting. Front passenger is faulty. There's a short circuit to the ground, and it's exactly the same for the driver's side. Now, although the seat belts didn't lock out, they're still bringing up a crash fault code. So it seems as if to get rid of this fault, we have to remove the seat belts, send them away to get reset, and then reinstall them. But that shouldn't stop us from starting the car today. Moment of truth. Will it start? I don't think it's a good idea to sit here just in case of an airbag. Yeah, in fact, I am going to sit out of the way. Just in case, you know, safety and all that. Go on. No? Nothing. What? It's gone red. Yeah, it's gone red, so press it. Oh! What? She's good! She's on, she's running, and no airbags have gone. We also have an engine management light. Not quite sure what that one's for. Now I'm going to keep an eye on the coolant reservoirs. I've left the cap open. Hopefully any airlocks or any air bubbles in them will rise up through the top and make the way out. But the good news is she's running and no airbags deployed, hopefully. And I think it's just those seatbelts that we need some attention to. We are pretty much at temperature and everything does seem all good. We do still have an engine light, the airbag light, and also EDIF unavailable, whatever that means as well. So it doesn't seem to matter what I do, I can't get that restraint system fault off the dashboard to do with the seatbelt. So it seems we're gonna have to take them out and send them away to be reset, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Now I really cannot wait to actually drive this thing off the ramp and out the unit, and we're not that far away. There is a few more things that we've got to do. Now it's really only the bonnet and the bumper which needs paint, but what I wanna do before it goes to paint is make sure that everything all lines up. And at the minute we are far from that. The gap between the bonnet and the door is a fairly big gap, and it's also lower than the door as well. I didn't put the upper wing back in place so I can access the bonnet hinges just to move that around. The bumper has a pretty big gap here. There's a gap between the bumper and the headlight. The bonnet isn't the best fitting at the moment. The gap is absolutely huge over here. The gap is huge here. And again, this bonnet gap is inconsistent to the one over there. So let's start this sort of tedious job of lining everything up before getting the wheels on and getting out of it. So to raise the bonnet up and down, I can do this by accessing the bonnet hinge. Then the adjustment for the bonnet forward and backwards and left to right is done from where the bonnet actually bolts onto the bonnet hinge at the top. Now, when I went into Aston Martin to collect the passenger side airbag, I did ask the technician, do they have any panel gap tolerances? And they said no. When they do the PDI inspection, they just make sure that the panel gaps are the same both sides. So my checking tool to make sure it's the same both sides is this little trim tool. And both sides seem pretty close. But if I'm honest, I don't know how well the panels line up from factory. And the only thing I've got to go off is this video I took of an Aston Martin Vantage outside Aston Martin when we went. So I'm just trying to get the bonnet lines as close to that video as possible. And next up is the front bumper. You can see it's pretty low compared to the bonnet. And kind of fortunately for me, there is loads of adjustment screws for the bumper to bring it up to where the bonnet sits. And trust me, if you've ever done this job before, trying to line panels up on a car, you will get sick of it. I actually ended up taking out the headlights to try and line the bumper up a bit better before popping them back in and then trying to line the headlights up to the bumper because they have loads of adjustment screws on as well. This is honestly one of the most frustrating things ever. I've played around with this for too long now, and well, I thought I got the panel gap perfect here, I thought I got it perfect here, I thought I got it pretty much perfect there. You line the headlights up and then it's like the bonnet is just coming just short of the headlight. It almost like the bonnet needs to come forward a bit more, and this gap seems a little too big, I don't know, but if I move the bonnet forward then it's going to make this gap bigger. It's also going to mean that the body line here is going to be edged forward as well, and oh, it's just, and it's the same the other side. Look, the headlight is just coming short of the bonnet. If I move the headlight back, it's just not going to solve things. It's going to be further away from the bumper, and I will try and just move the bonnet forward a tiny bit, but I just can't see me getting this right. In the end, I ended up giving up. The bonnet and the bumper does still have to go to paint, which means they will have to come off again. But it would have been nice just to be able to undo them, get them painted, and then pop them back in the same position. But it looks like we'll worry about that more when we come to refit them, as I'm sure they do fit bang on. They all are OEM parts. And we know everything that we've replaced is all straight. But for now, I'm going to start bolting on all the final little bits and bobs. And if you watched the previous videos, you would know that I bought a few extra things for the Aston, like carbon wing mirrors. Instead of replacing the full wing mirror, I've just managed to pull off the cap, and then I'm going to replace it for this genuine Aston Martin carbon mirror cap, which now will match the front carbon splitter, and the carbon bonnet vents, of course. Next up, the rear diffuser. We have a full carbon one to replace the standard rear diffuser. But it wasn't long until we ran into a few issues with that. So this diffuser came off a race car. Now race cars don't tend to have reverse lights, and well, here is the reverse light, which is just a tiny little thing here, and there's no other reverse light on there, which leaves us with kind of a few options. And one option is to put the old one back on and have a reverse light but have no carbon. The other option was originally to drill into this and cut this out to have a reverse light, but as you can see, if we put this in the correct place, this sits so much further out than that reverse light that if we cut there, there would just, it's nowhere near it. The only other thing we could do is extend the wiring out. Like, would you just drill and pop a little LED light in there? Let me know. Well, let's put it on and we'll go from there. Well, I came to a verdict. This is on now. Okay, I don't know if you see it, we're like in a tight space, but this is absolutely colossal. You can tell it's off a race car. This probably actually works as a race car feature. It probably has some form of downforce and it is there for a reason. But it's absolutely colossal, and I think in my opinion right now, it does look out of place. It literally looks like someone's just whacked a bit of wood on the back. If we had a big spoiler to go with it, I wouldn't be that bothered. I think this has just got such a flipping epic. Look at it, it's so much aggression, whereas the ducktail on the back hasn't got that much aggression. I vote, we might have to go back to original, I think. I vote no. Let me know in the comment section. Let's get this off, get a windscreen in, and we can finally get this out on the first try. So maybe I'm getting old. I actually said no to a modification. And whilst I have time to think about my mature decision, Screensaver turned up with a new windscreen for the Aston, the final piece of the puzzle. Now, windscreens don't come cheap at the best of times, but when they're on an Aston Martin, it gets even more expensive. Now, direct from Aston Martin, a windscreen would have cost me £2,300, but from Screensaver, still, it's an expensive windscreen, but it saved me quite a lot at £1,200. We also have to do a massive shout out to Rob at DENTS, because I spotted a pretty good dent in the passenger side door where the old bonnet had creased into it. He came out and did some paintless dent removal on the door, and now you wouldn't have even known that it was there. And with all that done, that brings the total cost now, so far, to £15,704.54p. But now it's the moment I've been waiting for the whole time since owning this Aston Martin, and that is driving it for the first time to the body shop. I literally cannot wait. Here we go. I have absolutely no idea how this has happened in my life, but here I am driving a 2019 Aston Martin Vantage that I bought and rebuilt. How is this happening? Straight towards the warm sun and into his hands. Oh, we're having an issue already. We've got a gearbox fault. Yes, we've got a gearbox fault already. Hello? Can you follow me? Because I keep cutting out.
Yeah, okay. Give me 2 seconds. I just need to drop something off at the unit.
So just like the C63, we haven't made it far before getting an issue. It seems to be something gearbox related, I think, at the minute, and I don't have the code reader with me. We're only going just down the road to the body shop, but all we've got to do is make it there. This is the fault that we're getting, EDIF unavailable. That could mean absolutely anything in the world of Aston Martin. We also have an engine management light on as well. So perhaps we should just whack it in normal mode. I did get a bit eager and put it in sport, but we're waiting for Hannah to follow us and we'll see if we can make it there. Come on, Aston. So as usual with crash damaged cars, we're bound to get some teething issues when we first take it out. Okay, Hannah is behind now. Come on, Aston, we're just going to the body shop there. But it seemed this one was just a small hiccup, and afterwards it seemed to drive completely fine, despite the fault codes on the dash. And it was also good to see that the 360 cameras were working as well. But it finally made it to Allied Automotive, where the bonnet and bumper will be painted. Okay, so bonnet and bumper is now stripped, ready for paint. I have taken it all apart, but it can all go back together with the same alignment, although we've still got to perfect it. So it will stay here now for about a week, and then the car should be fully done. So there we have one empty unit, but with plenty more projects to crack on with, like the Range Rover and the C63. So again, thanks so much for watching this video and all of my videos, in fact. And if you've enjoyed this one, hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out.